Winter 1903. Inside the grand halls of the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, a party is underway. But this isn't just any party. This is the final, dazzling spectacle of Imperial Russia. As the nobility dances in 17th century costumes, dripping with priceless jewels, a storm is gathering just outside the palace walls, a storm that would sweep them all away. This is the story of that last magnificent party before their world ended. The event was so breathtakingly opulent, it was called a perfect work of art. Yet it was beauty flourishing on the edge of a volcano, just 14 years before Tsar Nicholas II would be forced to abdicate. As social pressures mounted and the drums of revolution grew louder, Russia's elite gathered for one last glorious performance. This is the story of the 1903 Costume Ball, Europe's last great royal ball, a party that has become a symbol of a lost world, a defiant, dazzling flare of light just before the darkness fell. The year was 1903, and the Romanov dynasty, one of Europe's oldest and most powerful ruling families, was celebrating 290 years on the Russian throne. To mark the occasion, Emperor Nicholas II and his wife, Empress Alexandra Fedorovna, decided to host a celebration unlike any other. This wasn't going to be just another glittering ball in a season full of them. This was something far more profound. The idea, which came from the Empress herself, was for a grand costume ball with a very specific theme: the glorious, pre-Westernized era of 17th century Russia. This was a deeply symbolic choice. At the turn of the 20th century, a Russian resurgence was underway among artists and intellectuals who looked back to a time before Peter the Great's sweeping reforms, finding inspiration in the nation's own folklore and traditions. This was a sentiment Nicholas's father, Alexander III, had strongly encouraged, promoting a vision of Russia with its own unique cultural destiny. For Nicholas and Alexandra, the ball was more than just a masquerade. They saw it as a first step toward reviving the ancient court rituals and dress of their ancestors, a way to connect with a purer, more authentically Russian past. It was a fantasy of restoring the glory of the 17th century Tsars, an era of absolute power that stood in stark contrast to the fragile political landscape of their own time. So the decision was made: the cream of the Russian aristocracy, nearly 400 guests, would be summoned to the Winter Palace for a two-part celebration in February. They were instructed to arrive in meticulously recreated 17th century attire, transforming the palace into a living portrait of a bygone age. The preparations sent a wave of excitement and chaos through the capital. The city's top designers were flooded with orders. Historical experts were brought in to ensure every detail was authentic. Gowns were made from heavy brocades, shimmering silks, and rich velvets, all adorned with gold braiding and precious stones. Men would dress as powerful nobles and musketeers in fur hats and elaborate caftans, while women would wear traditional dresses and jewel-encrusted headpieces called kokoshniks, showing off their finest family heirlooms. These were not simply costumes, but masterpieces of design and historical reconstruction, each serving as a testament to the vast wealth and artistic fervor of the period. At the center of this spectacle stood the Emperor and Empress. Tsar Nicholas II elected to portray one of his favorite ancestors, Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich, the second Romanov monarch. The Emperor's costume, titled the Lesser Royal Attire, was tailored by Ivan Kafi, the costumier for the Imperial Theaters. The outfit consisted of a caftan and mantle made from gold brocade. Nicholas carried an original 17th century royal scepter and wore the pendant of Tsar Peter Alexeyevich, one of 38 priceless historical items transported from the Moscow Kremlin armory to ensure total authenticity. Furthermore, the period-accurate dress was adorned with details imitating the pearl-beaded cuffs once worn by the son of Tsar Ivan the Terrible. Empress Alexandra Fyodorovna was arrayed in the costume of Tsaritsa Maria Ilyinichna, the consort of Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich, known as the Quietist. The attire of the Tsar and Tsaritsa differed from that of the nobility only on particularly solemn occasions. At such times, it consisted of the royal plotno, a long, open front garment that flared significantly towards the hem, featuring short, wide sleeves. The front closure, the hem, and the sleeve edges were all trimmed with decorative bands. This was complemented by a wide, round collar and a conical headpiece with a fur trim. Beneath the plotno, she wore a long undershirt reaching down to her feet. Its decorated cuffs were visible through the wide sleeves of the outer gown. This undergarment was typically worn with a narrow belt and adorned with intricate patterns, with the neckline finished in an ornamental border. The entire ensemble was lavishly embroidered with an abundance of pearls, emeralds, and diamonds, the central emerald being as large as the palm of a hand. The Empress's costume, titled The Attire of Tsaritsa Maria Ilyinichna, was crafted to replicate the image of the Tsaritsa from the icon, the Kiev Cross with attendant saints. According to the memoirs of the Empress's lady-in-waiting, Baroness Sophie Buxheaven, the headgear, in the Empress's own words, was so heavy that at supper she found she could not even lean down to her food. Only a small fraction of the garments and items from this ball have survived to the present day. One of these rare survivors is the masquerade attire of Princess Yusupova. She commissioned a 17th-century Russian boyarinya costume, featuring a koshnik and a gown with a hem embellished with precious stones by the jeweler Cartier. Zinaida Nikolaevna further distinguished her ensemble by having 2 different koshniks and 2 types of sleeves created for the outfit. While the sarafan-styled dress remained the same for both looks, Princess Yusupova's sarafan was uniquely fitted at the waist, a departure from the traditional canons of classical tailoring. For the commemorative album, Zinaida Nikolaevna posed in an ensemble consisting of a koshnik, a sarafan, and a Russian boyar sleeveless vest made of a very heavy gold glacé, brocade, according to surviving descriptions. Princess Yusupova's original boyar vest and koshnik have not survived. However, a similarly shaped koshnik, typical of the central provinces of the Russian Empire, is preserved in the State Historical Museum. The princess's actual sarafan is held in the collection of the State Hermitage Museum. The headpiece chosen by the princess for her second look was known as a chelka or venets, diadem. This form of maidenly headgear is characteristic of the festive attire of the Novgorod province. Another surviving ensemble is the costume of Grand Duchess Ksenia Alexandrovna, which presented one of the most majestic images of the ball and became the definitive benchmark of the Russian style. Crafted from heavy gold brocade, the outfit consisted of a traditional letnik with wide, flared sleeves, richly trimmed with snow-white ermine fur. Evgeny Fabergé, the eldest son of the renowned jeweler Peter Karl Fabergé, participated in the creation of this jewelry and tailoring masterpiece, personally supervising the selection of gemstones and the crafting of the costume's ornate elements. The surface of the fabric was literally bathed in light from a profusion of pearls, emeralds, and diamonds, arranged in intricate antique floral patterns. The centerpiece of the look was a magnificent high kokoshnik, adorned with a pearl fringe, padnes, and studded with large gemstones, from which a light, airy veil cascaded. For many years, the fate of this headpiece remained a mystery, and it was officially considered lost in the whirlwind of revolutionary events. However, in 2022, the global scholarly community was stunned by the news. The unique kokoshnik had been discovered in the collections of the Omsk State Museum of Regional History. Researchers found that this priceless artifact arrived in Siberia as early as 1927 via the State Museum Fund, but it had remained unidentified for decades. Only through the painstaking work of experts and careful comparison with archival photographs from the Levitsky and Sons studio was it possible to confirm that this treasure belonged to the Grand Duchess. Today, this kokoshnik is more than just a piece of a masquerade dress. It is a living testament to the supreme craftsmanship of the House of Fabergé and a final glimmer of the former grandeur of Imperial Russia. One of the most precious exhibits in the Imperial costume collection is the dazzling ensemble of a wealthy 17th-century merchant's wife as portrayed by Princess Maria of Greece and Denmark. Every detail of this costume has been perfectly preserved to the present day. The foundation of the outfit was a pale green satin dress embroidered with silver, over which she wore a gold brocade shirt and a short white velvet jacket trimmed with gold. The crowning glory was a massive gold kokoshnik, sparkling with 7 stars, each featuring a large diamond at its center and adorned with delicate diamond strands along the edges. A netting of fine river pearls draped over the princess's forehead, while heavy pearl strands were fastened beneath her chin, complemented by a pearl collar and massive emeralds. Completing this fairy tale look were gold brocade shoes with upturned toes, embellished with double-headed eagles fashioned from pearls. Equally majestic was the male ensemble in which Prince Dmitry Borisovich Golitsyn appeared at the ball. Choosing the role of the master of the Tsar's hunt of the 17th century, he showcased a bright red velvet outfit that became one of the most recognizable of the celebration. The defining feature of this costume is a massive double-headed eagle, masterfully embroidered in gold on both the chest and the back. The high standing collar and cuffs are lavishly decorated with pearl patterns and intricate gold stitching, while the prince's head was crowned by a striking red cap trimmed with sable fur. Countess Karlova appeared at the ball in an equally exquisite attire. The surviving elements of the costume, crafted from violet velvet and gold brocade, are adorned with a bold floral pattern and feature wide sleeves embellished with masterful embroidery and fringe. Of particular value is the cylindrical kokoshnik, embroidered with silver and gemstones and finished with a delicate pearl mesh. Today, this ensemble, preserved in pristine condition, is held in the State Hermitage Museum. Like the other garments of the 1903 ball, it remains a magnificent embodiment of the Russian style and authentic imperial splendor. However, the memory of that legendary celebration was preserved not only within museum display cases. A few years later, the grandeur of the 1903 costumes was given a second life in a most unusual and widespread format. To mark the 300th anniversary of the House of Romanov, a famous deck of playing cards titled Russian Style was released. Remarkably, the prototypes for all the face cards were real participants of that very masquerade. Artists drew inspiration from the commemorative gift albums containing archival photographs of the ball, translating the opulent fabrics and antique designs onto paper. Thus, Emperor Nicholas II was forever immortalized as the King of Hearts, in a depiction that perfectly replicated his attire as Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich. Interestingly, the Russian-style deck does not include a card corresponding to the image of Empress Alexandra. However, it does feature a card modeled after the Empress's elder sister, Grand Duchess Elizabeth Fyodorovna. The ball's renowned beauty, Princess Zinaida Yusupova, whose performance of the Russkaya dance enchanted every guest, is clearly recognizable as the Queen of Spades. Grand Duchess Ksenia Alexandrovna served as the prototype for the Queen of Clubs. In addition to the Emperor, the deck also featured his younger brother, Grand Duke Michael Alexandrovich, who became the King of Clubs, while Grand Duke Andrei Vladimirovich, dressed in the attire of a falconer, is easily recognizable as the Jack of Diamonds. This deck became the most popular in Russia and continued to be printed even during the Soviet era, surviving the revolution and the changing of epochs. As a result, the magnificent costumes we continue to admire today became recognizable to millions of people, transforming the last court ball into a truly eternal legacy of Russian culture. Yet behind this radiance lay the inexorable shadow of history. For many who attended that evening, the ball became their last joyful memory in the face of the impending catastrophe. Fate, as if in mockery of the masquerade's luxury, proved merciless. Emperor Nicholas II, Empress Alexandra, and Grand Duchess Elizabeth Fedorovna, those whose images remain forever frozen on playing cards, met a martyr's death just 15 years after the ball in the cellars of Yekaterinburg and the mineshafts of Alapayevsk. Prince Dmitry Golitsyn, the master of the Tsar's hunt and Grand Master of the Imperial Court, lived out his days in exile, as did Grand Duchess Xenia Alexandrovna and Princess Yusupova. They left Russia forever, carrying with them only fragments of memories of the gold brocade and diamonds that were either confiscated or sold for a pittance just to survive in a foreign land. The world they sought to resurrect for a single night in 1903 crumbled into dust. Costumes created for eternity became museum exhibits or meaningless rags in the hands of revolutionary sailors. The 1903 ball remains in history as the dazzling sunset of an empire. It was the farewell performance of a great culture, a final attempt to hold on to a slipping grandeur. We see the faces of people who danced on the edge of the abyss, unaware that their silks would soon be soaked in blood, and their palaces would become monuments to their own passing. It was beauty on the edge of a volcano, a flash of light that extinguished, yet left behind a trail we still seek to decipher today. The last ball of the Romanovs ceased to be a mere celebration. It became an eternal requiem for a lost world that vanished, leaving us only its shadows in brocade and silver. Thank you for joining me in exploring this dazzling piece of history. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Let me know in the comments which other historical events you would like to discover next. Until next time.